Well, unfortunately, as we're just talking up Rest in Peace like crazy, this is a matchup where we're not going to see Rest in Peace
Not going to see Rest in Peace, but, you know.
What we are going to see is Maro Regery, Master of the Pearl Trident, and Lord of Atlantis, among other blue cards, along with your standard Force of Wills, your Dazes, your Aether Vials, and of course, or not of course, one of my favorite cards in Merfolk that hasn't been there for a little while, Standstill.
3 copies are there.
3 copies in Tyler's deck list, so should be interesting. You have Blake's deck list as you stack in Pluto Delta.
Yeah, Bug Control, as you can see on the top of the screen there, playing the Abrupt Decay that I mentioned as probably the first card, the most obvious card that has applications from Return to Ravnica in Legacy. You know, we're a month into the format. I think every week we've seen Abrupt Decay in Legacy, and you know, for good reason. It's a 2-mana answer to almost every permanent that sees play in Legacy, and it can't be countered. Yeah. So basically, the cost of playing Abrupt Decay is you just need to be able to produce blue and green. And while most Legacy players know, blue is kind of the best color in Legacy, typically. So blue, not too big of a problem. I'm sorry, did I say blue-green? I meant black-green.
Yeah, but I mean, no it goes into
it goes right into blue decks. I'm like,
yeah.
what am I talking about? I'm like, where did I start? I meant black-green. I think because I'm thinking of pairing it with blue.
Well, blue's the best color in Legacy, depending on who you ask.
So you have the blue, and then you pair it with a catch-all answer like Abrupt Decay. They can't be countered.
And Abrupt Decay is, you know, it's almost worth stretching your mana for it if you can, because as you said, it does answer a ton of cards in the format. Obviously, it's going to answer specific creatures like Delver's Secrets or Flipped Insectile Aberration, Tarmogoyf, what have you, but it's also nice that it also takes care of an Aether Vial, which you may see happen in this matchup, or alternatively, a card like Sylvan Library, which is a card people can't play a ton of, but, you know, when they do actually draw it and play it in a Maverick deck or a Rug Delver deck like Todd Anderson did, the card can dominate a game. And having Abrupt Decay be able to catch all of those cards, and there's a ton of cards we're not even talking about or even thinking about right now, makes it just a fantastic card in the format.
As we're talking about it, that is not an Abrupt Decay, but there is one. There's one in his hand, and
we're going to see a Daze.
So Daze for the Dark Confidant.
It is a little bit risky to let that Aether Vial sit out there. Like having Aether Vial on 1 from Merfolk, not that big of a deal, but once it starts to get up to 2, it starts pumping out Silvergill Adepts and Master of the Pearl Trident, Lord of Atlantis. That's when you really need to take care of it. So I can see leaving it on 1, you know, let him vial out a Curse Catcher, but after that, I want that thing off the table.
Sure.
Now, that being said, you know, if he has the 3rd land, he could have waited a turn to be able to play through Daze, and
yeah, he could have gone Abrupt Decay there, which can't be dazed. Play a land, you know, hopefully, and resolve the Bob through Daze, as you mentioned. So, but as we see, Tyler had a Wasteland, so that would have cut off that plan anyway.
And now, because he did not Abrupt Decay the Aether Vial, he got Wastelanded.
Yeah.
Blake doesn't have a 2nd land to play, or I mean, he doesn't have a 3rd land to play. Excuse me, no blue source either, so he can't ponder anything. And now he's stuck with Abrupt Decay in his hand, and Vial being on its sweet spot at 2.
Yeah, so Tyler's going to get at least 1 activation out of that Vial if he has a 2-drop in hand. Blake does manage to find a 2nd land and is able to play Abrupt Decay here. And I hope he learned his lesson and wants to maybe get rid of the Vial, because I certainly wouldn't want it to stick around.
He does have a Tarmogoyf in his hand, and it looks as though he did just pass the turn, so we're vialing on the end step here.
Yeah.
But you got to get rid of that thing, Blake. You can't let that stay in play any longer.
I mean, obviously, even if he went ahead with the Decay on his turn, that Coral Helm Commander was going to pop out anyway in response. But yeah, it's tapped. All right, he got a dude out of it. Get rid of it. Yeah, and he does. Abrupt Decay on the Aether Vial. And the board state is Mutavault, Coral Helm Commander on Tyler's side. Blake's side, empty except for 2 lands, Underground Sea and Bayou.
Merfolk, a much worse deck without the Aether Vial. If you can kill it, and a lot of decks can't kill it game 1, if it's in play outside of, you know, Force of Will or whatever counterspell you have. Once it's in play, it's hard to get off the table. If you have the ability to kill it, you got to kill it. Make them play Fair Magic. Make them use mana to cast their spells, excuse me.
Which is Fair Magic. In most cases. Alright, Commander comes over into the red zone. And Tyler with an island added to the board and Aether Vial number 2.
Now we're going to see level up.
Yep, levels the Coral Helm Commander. And Snapcaster Mage off the top for Blake now. He needs to hit 4 mana to go Snapcaster Abrupt Decay, but that is certainly a possibility. He's going to brainstorm here. main phase Brainstorm. Sees Deathrite Shaman, sees Polluted Delta, and sees another Brainstorm.
Ooh, a Deathrite Shaman seeing playing Legacy.
Yeah, that's another one making a big impact, and there are 4 copies in Blake's deck.
I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. You know, it does a nice job of attempting to control Threshold, does a nice job with Tarmogoyf. Fetch lands are everywhere in this format. I think every deck plays fetch lands. I think like one of the only decks that doesn't play fetch lands is one of the ones that we're watching, which is Merfolk, oddly enough. So I guess that makes like perfect sense of why that would be a card that would see quite a bit of play in Legacy. Super versatile.
And we've got Polluted Delta into play for Blake. Taps the Bayou, plays the Deathrite Shaman. Does the Shaman resolve? Tyler not as scared of a Deathrite Shaman as a lot of decks. Like you mentioned, you know, no fetch lands, not really trying to abuse the graveyard. You know, I imagine no Snapcasters in this particular build of Merfolk unless it's a fringe build. Snapcaster typically not seen in Merfolk.
We are Snapcaster-less.
So no real benefit to Blake removing Tyler's graveyard as far as keeping him from interacting with it. Because Tyler, once something's in the graveyard for Tyler, it's gone. He may as well be exiled in most cases.
Yeah. Because we're going to see a Master of the Pearl Trident, the M13 rare, hitting play. One of the cards that has really made Merfolk into more of a major player in the format, because it is just Lord of Atlantis 5 through 8 for the most part.
Yeah, Merfolk had kind of disappeared for a while, and then when M13 came out and they got the Master of the Pearl Trident, it came right back. And I don't know that it was actually bad when it was kind of missing from the format, but kind of Master of the Pearl Trident shows up and kind of reminds players that, hey, Merfolk's still a deck, and here's a little bit of help.
Yeah, and it still does, a good job of crushing decks that have blue sources of mana. Tropical Island, Underground Sea, all those sort of decks were always favorable matchups for Merfolk. It was just the aggressive decks like Zoo, Goblins, and other aggro decks. What's the deck? Maverick, excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
Those were the bad matchups. And Maverick did pick up a lot of speed for a little while there.
Yeah.
So it's understandable why it did disappear. But again, Master is a card that really did put it back on the map because having more Crusades, especially at 2 mana, is a big deal.
So Blake now using the Deathrite Shaman's mana ability to cast a Liliana the Veil and play around Daze with a Polluted Delta up over there and available to produce mana. Well, available to get a land that will produce mana.
Sure.
Liliana appears to have resolved, and she's saying she wants to get rid of one of those Merfolk. So Master of the Pearl Trident goes away. Coral Helm Commander sticking around. Likely going to make quick work of the Liliana.
Coral Helm does have 2 level up counters on it right now, so it is in the sky as a 3/3 right now, so it can get over to Liliana, barring a 1 mana removal spell like a Ghastly Demise or a Dismember from Blake.
One of the better level up cards, probably the best of the level up cards printed in Rise of the Eldrazi. Yeah, there it is. There you see it on screen.
I think so, right?
2/2 for 2, not bad, and then immediately able to level up on the next turn to a 3/3 flyer if you want, and eventually a 4/4, which is what we're seeing here. Tyler leveling up his Coral Helm Commander, and he's got a 4/4 flying Merfolk Lord, and that Mutavault's coming in for 3 as well.
So Liliana's going to bite the dust. Coral Helm's going to get over for 4, and that's just going to be Tyler's turn.
Not a bad turn. In addition to the fact that Aether Vial has now hit 2 counters, and Blake has been unable to deal with it so far. Dealt with the first one.
Right there in its sweet spot. 2 for Aether Vial. Now it's on Blake. Blake is what I would consider to be pretty behind right now. He does have, some good cards in his hand, Ponder Brainstorm, some spells, what have you, but Tarmogoyf isn't looking great right now. Snapcaster Mage isn't bad, though.
I imagine he may have targeted the Abrupt Decay with the Snapcaster. He's going to crack his fetch land here, find a Tropical Island, and then I imagine he's going to use Deathrite Shaman and the Tropical Island. He's going to use Deathrite Shaman's mana ability, removing the Polluted Delta, and the mana from the Tropical Island to cast the Abrupt Decay. And it's exactly what he does. This time, instead of taking out the Vial, he's going to try to take out the Commander, which is actually presenting quite a problem.
And Deathrite Shaman is looking really nice right now. I'm going to tell you what. The mana fixing, you know, the way that it interacts, not in this matchup in particular, but I mean, even a deck I'm just thinking right now, like Reanimator, just like, turn on Deathrite Shaman is just, ugh. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah, it's part Birds of Paradise, part Grim Lavamancer, part Scavenging Ooze, kind of. Just like,
all at 1 mana, and it's a 1/2, which is like actually kind of relevant.
Right, because you know how many times people are just like, yeah, I'll attack you with my Dryad Arbor. You know, just get in. Nope. Well, Double Marrow Reejerey is quite a force. Tyler. Double Marrow Reejerey, activate Mutavault, swing in for 4 here. Tap your 1 blocker. Actually, yeah. Tap your Snapcaster, and Blake down to 4. So he needs to find Supreme Verdict. I mean,
and 2 white mana.
Sure,
I guess 1 white.
Yeah. Unlikely. This game is not looking good for Blake.
We're going to see a Brainstorm. If there's one card that can save someone, it is Brainstorm.
Absolutely.
So we see him draw Jace the Mind Sculptor, not Jace Architect, as we saw yesterday. A Thoughtseize and a Verdant Catacombs off of that.
I believe he put the Jace back at least, and I think he put the Thoughtseize back as well. Neither of those are going to get him out of this situation. Jace is kind of an expensive unsummon at this point, at best. Rather, he decides to play Tarmogoyf. Nice fat blocker.
And so he does have 3 blockers right now. And Tarmogoyf is a 5/6. So
that is a big boy.
It's a big Tarmogoyf, but 1 Merfolk is all it's going to take to seal this game up. Reejerey will be able to tap down 2 guys. Let's see if he has it. Wow.
Looks like 2 or 3 cards in Tyler's hand. Looks like 2. If you don't have the Merfolk and you're Tyler, do you just hold everybody back? You think you want to... Well, he's got the Merfolk. Tap your Tarmogoyf.
Doesn't use the other Reejerey
Yeah, he
trigger.
did not use the other trigger.
I think that's what's going on. I don't think he realizes that he can just tap 2 things.
Yeah, like there's 2 Reejereys on board. He can tap 2 guys with that with both of those, and just doesn't. I think he, getting ahead of himself. Probably realized it beforehand, but then just maybe lost track as he was thinking ahead for the turn and not realizing it. Well, 2 Reejereys and an activated Mutavault into the red zone. Blake's gonna have, well,
see a Dismember.
Dismembers. Okay. Yeah, that'll be fine because
yeah.
Tyler's gonna go to 16 and Blake's gonna go to below 0.
Yeah, this game should be. That one should do it, even though he made the mistake there with the Marrow Reejerey.
Yeah, he did have the removal spell to deal with the second blocker. I'm wondering what all does he? I mean, he does have access to a mana here. He could gain some life off of the Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, from down to 3, up to 5, and then he has 1 blocker. First biggest guy, which is a 4/4, and then he takes 6. So
yeah, still not going to work, right?
So that should be it, and it is it, oddly enough. So Tyler Macho is up a game against Blake McCracken.
Yeah, it was a rough start for Blake. I think he did have the Abrupt Decay for the first Vial, but other than that, it wasn't really able to ever get into the game. By the time he had a Tarmogoyf, it was a defensive Tarmogoyf, and Double Marrow Reejerey is really tough for anybody to deal with who's planning to block the Merfolk. That's kind of the power of Merfolk. It's like, hey, I don't have Lord of Atlantis. My guys don't have Island Walk. I'll just tap your blockers with my other Merfolk Lord.
And not to mention, like, Merfolk are bigger than normal. They're not just 2/2s. They're becoming 3/3s, maybe 4/4s, or at least my Mutavault's a 4/4. So
they are some real big fish.
So I know that you have Blake's deck list in front of you.
I do.
Anything in the sideboard to kind of turn this matchup around, which I think I would at least consider to be a pretty poor matchup, just because he's the kind of decks that Merfolk preys on.
Yeah, he's actually got 15 cards in the sideboard.
Oh, that's an ideal number.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So for Blake, he's got access to a couple of Vendilion clicks as a possibility. He's got one Crossing Grip, which is kind of like the fourth Abrupt Decay. He's got 2 copies of Engineered Plague, which it seems like you just auto-include it, but at the same time, you maybe want to think about it, because I feel like the Merfolk Lords, they're so big, it kind of just feels like it doesn't do enough.
Yep.
But I could see him bringing it in. He's got a Dark Blast, another one that reusable removal. These are cards that he's gonna want really early, but once it gets to the point where your opponent's got 2 Lords in play, you're just gonna these are just not gonna seem very impressive. So you obviously want them, but you hope to draw them early. He's also got Thrun, which is a nice big blocker, can't be countered, has regenerating. Could be something he'd want to bring in just to kind of present something of a brick wall and an attack force. But as we saw, it can also the Island Walk would make that irrelevant too. So Blake has a lot of cards that he could bring in, all of which Tyler has the potential to just completely run over anyway.
Yeah, and just completely ignore.
Yeah.
So there's nothing in his sideboard that is really that great. And to your point with Engineered Plague, it's a card that's much better against Goblins and Elves than it is against Merfolk, just because, as you said, the Lords just kind of blanket.
Yeah.
And it makes it so that you have to draw 2 for it to really have an impact. And drawing 2 of those is easier when you have 4.
Sure.
But Blake only has 2 copies in his sideboard, so you'd have to run pretty good to draw the 2 between Pondering and Brainstorming for them. And even again, 2 in play doesn't lock them out of the game sometimes, depending on how many Lords they've drawn. So I definitely agree with you that Engineered Plague really isn't where you want to be in this matchup. As far as Tyler's concerned, he's already got a pretty favorable matchup in front of him, some things that can assist him in furthering that along. Cura, great Glass Spinner, pretty nice card.
Mm-hmm. Really frustrating for an opponent to not be able to actually, even when you have the removal, you can't use the removal. Yeah,
and a card like Abrupt Decay, as good as it is in this particular matchup for being uncounterable, Cura doesn't care about being uncounterable.
Yeah.
So that's a nice one of that he has in his sideboard. There's 2 Spell Pierces, which Tyler didn't see very much of Spell Pierce that game. You can assume that Jace the Mind Sculptor is in his deck somewhere. And there are chances where you can Spell Pierce a Brainstorm or a Ponder, but those chances are few and far between. Outside of that, there isn't a whole lot going on here. I mean, there's a Spell Skite, which is fine. There's Phantasmal Image, which is okay. But again, nothing impressive. I honestly think that Tyler should, keep his configuration from game 1 pretty much intact. Because it's just a pretty favorable matchup for him. Merfolk preys on these kind of decks. This is what you come to the tournament looking to play against when you're playing Merfolk.
One thing I do want to note, I think Abrupt Decay actually wins the battle versus Cura, because her ability is creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability for the first time in a turn, counter that spell or ability. Abrupt Decay can't be countered, so Abrupt Decay wins.
That's weird.
So
okay. And I was treating it more of like a protection clause.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I understand. That's why I looked it up, because I wasn't sure exactly how it was worded, and I wanted the actual wording. That just makes Abrupt Decay even better.
Yeah, that's strange.
It's actually excellent. It makes me want to play 4 Abrupt Decay if I'm Bug. Because that's one of the most frustrating cards to play against. Merfolk already is a frustrating deck to play against. Their creatures are big and unblockable. So if you're a control deck like Blake's.
Yeah. I'm glad you looked that up, actually. I didn't know it was worded in such a way. You would think that when you think of Cura, then you think of Abrupt Decay or any removal spell.
Yeah, you're just kind of like...
Just like, oh, removal spell, okay.
Right, you have these
off my guy.
mental shortcuts where you're like, I just basically can't kill something with the first removal. It's going to take 2 removal spells to kill, to basically have the effect of 1. So, Aether Vial for Tyler, and Blake is McCracken a fetch.
We're going to see a Spell Pierce. Are we going to see a Spell Pierce back here? Let's fight.
Ooh, Spell Pierce fight. Counter War on turn 2.
I don't see a crack of the Verdant Catacombs. Let's see, we're going to search out here. For some reason, I think it's going to be an Underground Sea, and it is.
Look at that. You and your forecasting ability, or sight beyond sight.
Predict the future. I wish.
Hey, I'll spell pierce your spell pierce. I drink your milkshakes.
Well, Spell Pierce City has just happened.
Yeah, 3 spell pierces on turn 2 between the 2 players. And we've kept the board clear. Clear skies, no turbulence for Blake McCracken, and he's going to go ahead and cast Tarmogoyf.
Is that okay?
That's what Blake wants to know.
Yeah. Do you have a Force of Will? Because you can't daze it. And it's in there.
He can submerge it, though. It's a 3/4. I believe that we've seen Tarmogoyf on the big screen. You've seen Cloverfield. That is confirmed to have been Tarmogoyf.
All right, Tyler. Now the pressure is here. Let's see what he can kind of do about it. We're going to see a Silvergill Adept.
And does that resolve? It does. I'll show you Marrow Regery, and I'll get to draw a card. Draws, I believe, a Master of the Pearl Trident.
We see a Wasteland hitting play. Is it time to blow land up yet? He's already a little bit behind on lands. He is going to take care of Tropical Island, okay. Let's see if Blue Della hit play. We're going to see a Dark Blast.
Alright, Dark Blast drawn early, as I mentioned. It's just a one of, but drawing it early, very important. Actually able to trade 1 for 1 at this point with the Adept. I guess it was technically a 1 or a 1 for half a 1, because you know, the Adept replaced itself. You know, that's what makes the Adept so good. Draws Lord of Atlantis, I think. He definitely has one in hand. I think we've got island, possibly a 3rd island, Lord of Atlantis. Well, there's Mutavault, Master of the Pearl Trident. I love how I'm moving over as if I have a better angle.
Yeah, as if you can see his hand better if you keep sliding.
Yeah.
You know, this is one of the problems with Merfolk. One of the small issues is that it is a deck that only plays 20 lands. 12 of those lands are islands, and then there's 8 colorless lands, Wastelands and Mutavaults. And while Wasteland and Mutavaults are both great in this deck, it is a blue heavy deck.
Yeah.
Because right now he cannot cast those double blue spells.
Yeah, he's stuck with just 1 island, 1 blue source. And in the meantime, Tarmogoyf is getting his battle on. Brainstorm from Blake.
And so it looks like we see a Force of Will in the Regery.
Yeah, so Tarmogoyf is going to continue to get his battle on here after Regery is forced of will, countered by Force of Will. And
looks like we're going to see a Dredge Dark Blast for the draw step. And Dark Confidant, Liliana the Veil, and Abrupt Decay, making Tarmogoyf even a little bit bigger.
Yeah. And he does have an Engineered Plague in hand as well, so in concert with Dark Blast, the Engineered Plague looks pretty good. And there's a Deathrite Shaman as well. Goyf gets in for 5.
And that's going to knock Blake down, or excuse me, it's not Tyler down to 11. And I think that it's going to be very difficult for Tyler to win this game, basically because of the 2 cards you just talked about.
Yeah.
Engineered Plague in combination with Dark Blast, and no Lords being on the table right now. They're always going to be 2/2s. Engineered Plague is always going to make them 1/1s, and Dark Blast is always going to be able to finish them off.
Yep. 2 sideboard cards in Blake's hand, so that's something. Usually when you draw your sideboard cards, you should be in reasonably good shape. That's a good sign. We're going to see an Aether Vial here from Tyler off of a Mutavault. And Blake, we know, unable to do anything about that, so it resolves. But what it doesn't do is block Tarmogoyf. And that's something that Tyler would actually probably want a little more of. Aether Vial essentially dead at this point until it gets some counters on it. Tyler with not a lot of time. We're going to see Believe in Engineered Plague here. Playing around Daze.
As he should.
Yes.
I like how
he gets to play around Daze here, and if there is no Daze, or if there are not 2 Dazes, he can bash in for 6 here. If he wants.
He's just going
to bash for 5 and hold up the Shaman.
Sure. I mean, he's actually got, you know, he's got 2 Dazes beat right now because of Delta and Shaman. Shaman's
sure.
running mana.
Right, and that's what I was thinking about too.
Like Shaman's so good.
Does seem really good. So the Tarmogoyf gets chumped by a Mutavault. Tyler just trying to stay in the game. Aether Vial ticks up to 1. Just wants to hit 2. He can get that Lord of Atlantis into play. Of course, that's going to be a little smaller than the Lord of Atlantis we're used to because of Engineered Plague. So what did Engineered Plague name, Jesse? What creature type? Just wondering.
Lurgoyf.
Lurgoyf. Okay. So he's trying to shrink his own Tarmogoyf? Is that the...
It's a torture.
Oh, this is bold.
No, I believe the Engineered Plague named him Merfolk. That's just correction. Sorry, correction.
It's not often you see a defensive standstill.
No, that's a pretty interesting move.
This is the most defensive standstill you'll ever see.
Okay, so standstill from Tyler. I can't even understand why that's...
I mean, ideally he doesn't die this turn, and then he's able to vial out a guy and maybe block with Univalt, and in a perfect world, things would go on 3 or 4 more turns, but in reality, Tarmogoyf's going to be attacking him down, putting him to 4, and then 2 Deathrite Shaman activations will finish him off, but he doesn't ever even have to attack again.
All right, so Tyler's at 9. Gonna go to 4 here.
Can't even vial in a Curse Catcher to save himself because of Engineered Plague.
Vial ticks up to 2. Draws an island off the top. Alright, so Tyler may be able to mount something of a defense. He's going to have to give Blake 3 cards if he does. Not off the Vial, but if he decides to cast something, which is what he's doing. Hope he didn't forget about his own Standstill. Mirror Regery. Standstill? Yeah. Breaks? Yeah.
That works for you too?
Yeah. Hey, he screwed him up. He did forget about his own Standstill.
Okay, I'm out of here. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, I didn't expect that either. First I didn't expect him to play the Standstill. And then he just immediately just throws the Regery onto the board. I'm like, I think that was a little too quick. He didn't even hesitate. Yeah, it was almost Regery. Like, yeah, and then Standstill. Oh, wait, now I'm hesitating.
Can I take that back?
Yeah.
No,
I can take it back, right?
I want my 3
Judge,
cards.
I can take this. I get take backs.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're going to be heading over to game 3. Tyler taking a look through his deck again. Blake already shuffling, happy with his configuration. I don't think much changes on Tyler's end, and I think Blake is pretty well set up too. How do you see this game going?
Well, obviously being on the play is going to help Tyler a little bit more than it helped Blake, because of the aggressive nature of his deck. He wants to get started. He wants to start with a turn 1 Aether Vial if he can. Obviously Blake may have something to say about that in the form of free counter spells, Force of Will or whatnot. So I think Tyler has a slight edge. As you mentioned, this is the kind of deck he wants to play against. He's on the play. But, if Blake continues to draw his sideboard cards, as we saw in Game 2, Blake can definitely put up a fight. And if Tyler's going to continue to play standstills when Blake is in a position where he would love to have a standstill on the board, and then break them himself,
that would make things pretty easy for Blake as well.
Yeah. That was a weird place to cast standstill.
I agree. And it just may have slipped up a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know. He did have Vial on board. He may have been thinking, he can play through the standstill with the Vial and maybe get some cards out of it, but standstill is one of those cards you love to have when you've got pressure and they've got none, but it was the opposite
Yeah, the other way around.
It doesn't block.
It doesn't do much of anything when
Yeah.
you're behind. It's kind of sad, actually. It's one of those cards, and you don't see a lot of cards like this anymore that are so good when you're ahead and so bad when you're behind.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a card like in Standard right now that is kind of like that, and there's nothing that really jumps forward to mind, or even in Legacy, other cards that are just like that. I'm behind, might as well even have this card in my hand, let alone my deck. If I'm ahead, there's no other card I would rather want.
Yeah.
We checking through our sideboards again. We are here in Dallas, Fort Worth, Star City Games Open Series, here with Joey Pasco. I am Cedric Phillips. We're in round 3 of 8 of the Legacy tournaments. Our first round of coverage today, we've already crowned a Standard champion, playing Blue-White Flash, designed by Adam Prozac.
That's right. Shane Ramelt took down the tournament after top 8ing in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago with blue-white-red mid-range. Cuts the red and gets deeper into the tournament, as deep as it gets, right to the trophy.
2 colors may be the way to be.
Yeah, it seems like mostly a 3-color format when you really think about it. You know, it's just, you don't even need to really think about it. When you just barely think about it, it's a 3-color format.
You just gloss over results.
Yeah, it's like everything's, you know, XXX mid-range is kind of the the way it looks, but just that extra consistency may be the key. But that's Standard. This is Legacy.
This is the best format in Magic.
I tend to agree with you. I think I'm Standard only beats out Legacy for me when it's when there's a new set very recently, like especially post rotation.
Sure.
So right now, I'm a little more excited to play with Standard than I would be to play Legacy, but most of the year I'm more excited about Legacy.
Tyler, really looking it over.
I'm just excited that there are multiple formats where you can say, you know, I want to play Jace. Which Jace do I want to play? Well, I guess I'll play Mind Sculptor. I want to play Legacy. Architect of Thought. I'm going to play Standard. You know, I want to play. Well,
it's bad that those thoughts never crossed my mind.
What? That you never want to play Jace?
Yeah, never really.
Oh, you have your cards that you want to play. Spectral Flight or something. I don't know.
I've played Jace. I've played Jace twice actually when it was Standard legal. I used to play Blue Green Turboland, as we see Tyler taking a mulligan at least down to 6 here. And then, I don't know if you remember the deck Mythic.
Oh yeah, I remember Mythic.
That deck was so good.
That deck was crazy.
That I didn't have a choice but to play with it.
That was Bant colored. It had Lotus Cobra, basically just ramped up to Sovereigns of Lost Alara, grabbed a what was Mythic conscription, Eldrazi conscription, right? And often just put it on a Birds of Paradise. You know, in a lot of cases,
swinging
just
for
like swing
a 10 or 11 damage on
plus
turn
the
3
Annihilate
or 4.
trigger. Yeah, that was a crazy deck. I didn't play with it. I played against it a lot. I was typically playing just the blue-white Chapin-esque, like Pro Tour San Diego deck with, you know, Wall of Omens and everlasting or Everflowing Chalice, Jace, of course. You know, you get Gideon, you get, you know, all those cool cards. Although Pro Tour San Diego was pre Rise of Eldrazi, so not exactly that deck. But anyway, yeah, Mythic was pretty big game.
We have 6 cards. We have what looks to be a keep.
Does Blake have protection from daze just because of those sleeves?
I don't think so.
It says don't daze me. I mean, you're not allowed to daze him. Just he called it. It's like dibs. Like, don't daze me. Can't daze me.
Shotgun no days.
That's right.
Let's see Wasteland on a pass.
Curse Catcher. Gonna get his beats on. Knocks Blake to 19. I'm a little worried for Blake. Turn 1 Wasteland. Although there's a target. He does appear to have. He does have lands in hand. I wonder if he's just, you know, playing around opposing Wastelands or something.
Possibly, maybe trying to induce.
Sure. So Wasteland takes out Mutavault, and a Verdant Catacombs comes down for Blake. Second land for Tyler is going to bring out a Master of the Pearl Trident. Going to make that Curse Catcher a little bit fatter.
Well, Blake is looking at a Force of Will and a Ponder that he could remove. There's also an Abrupt Decay, a Thrun the Last Troll, and an Engineered Play to go along with the 2 lands in his hand. So He does have the option of countering this, which he is going to take.
Removing Ponder, the Merfolk Ponder. So
Are we going to see a Force of Will back here?
We are force removing Spell Pierce from Tyler.
So that's going to resolve, and we're in for 2.
Yep. Nice Hymn to Torok out of a mono blue deck.
Yeah. Problem here is for Tyler is he's pretty much out of gas now. He has 1 card left in his hand. I believe it is a Mutavault.
I think so too.
As we see a Tarmogoyf drawn here for Blake, and if that is an Abrupt Decay in Blake's hand, he's able to take care of the Master, making Curse Catcher into a rather irrelevant threat.
Especially considering the Engineered Plague in Blake's hand.
Draw a card. Alright, well there's another Master of the Pearl Trident, so not a bad draw.
There's that Mutavault, and here comes that Master, which we know Blake tried to counter the first one. Certainly would love to counter the second one. Unfortunately, Abrupt Decay is not Maelstrom Pulse, so Blake's gonna go ahead and crack that Verdant Catacombs. I believe there's gonna be an Abrupt Decay on the attacking Master of the Pearl Trident. He's gonna take 2 from a Curse Catcher. Yeah, exactly that. And Tyler passes. All right, Blake untaps, thinks about playing a tropical island, commits. Now he can Engineered Plague to kind of negate the 1 Lord, which is not what he's going with here. He's going with Tarmogoyf first.
Okay. Well, Curse Catcher is still going to be able to get his beatdown on.
Sure is, yeah.
Same with Mutavault as well, but it's going to make it so that Master of the Pearl Trident is going to have to pump the brakes. Tyler draws a card. It is a mystery. It's not going to influence his turn too much, as we're going to see a beatdown for 5.
Here they come. Blake gonna drop to 8.
Feels like the land. Okay, it's not a land at all. It's an Aether Vial. Okay.
All right, Aether Vial from Tyler. Not as frightening when he is empty-handed, but I'm sure Blake would like to get rid of it if he can. First, he's got to deal with the threats on the board. Engineered Plague comes down, names Merfolk.
Shrinking the army a little bit.
Right.
Still pretty good attacks here for Tyler.
Yeah, Curse Catcher's still back to being a Curse Catcher, and Mutavault back to being regular old Mutavault.
The only bonus is they both have Island Walks, so Blake is going to take 3 here. He's going to go down to 5. And Tyler has him on a 2-turn clock. He's going to pass back.
Yeah, unfortunately for Blake, one of the cards in his hand is a Bob, which is likely to take a chunk out of that life total. At least 20% if it's, hitting a non-land. Thrun the Last Troll.
And counter wolves can be, but doesn't have an impact, doesn't change anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's I really am not sure what his plan is here. He's tapped out, has Spell Pierce, Dark Confidant in hand. He's he's not dead this turn, but Tyler can just go ahead and swing the way he has been. Swing in for 3 here. Curse Catcher a 1/1, Mutavault a 1/1. Not getting, well, technically getting boosted by the Master and getting shrunken by the Engineered Plague.
That's an odd turn by Tyler because I'm pretty sure he has a Lord of Atlantis in his hand. And if that was the case, he missed the onboard kill. Now, if I am wrong about that, I do apologize. It's either a Lord of Atlantis or a Silvergill Adept.
More likely, based on what happened, to be a Silvergill Adept. Blake, I didn't see what Blake drew for the turn. Whatever it was, he was content to make no play and pass back. Not looking good for Blake here.
Well, we're going to try to get him for lethal.
All right.
See if you got anything. That's it.
There it is. Blake does not have an answer. Tyler able to overwhelm him with the fishies. And 2-1. Merfolk over Bug Control here in round 3 of the StarCityGames.com Legacy Open, Dallas, Fort Worth.